Hello everybody, and welcome to DidYouKnowGaming Extra.
This video is all about games for the 3DS, but before we get into that, this video is sponsored by Rovio Entertainment. Angry Birds 2 takes every aspect of the original and refines it to feel more like a complete gaming experience. The title now has a map overworld and a large variety of level themes, including highly detailed backgrounds. Boss battles have been brought into the mix, as well as spells which can have a huge impact on the outcome of a stage. Speaking of which, instead of having simple one-screen levels, Angry Birds 2 features multiple screens within each stage. We felt that these changes in particular made the game feel more engrossing than previous Angry Bird games. After planning to just play it for half an hour to get footage, we ended up putting multiple hours into the title. The birds themselves can now be upgraded through leveling and equipment, adding to the game's depth. The birds can be equipped with hats which are unlocked through various challenges or by using various in-game valuables like black pearls. These and other collectibles can be unlocked in the game's arena mode, where players compete against each other to get the best score on a predetermined level. If you're interested in trying it out, you can download Angry Birds 2 for iOS and Android today. For more information on Angry Birds 2, click the link at the top of the description. Thanks again to Rovio Entertainment for sponsoring this video, and now over to Dazz for the trivia.
The 3DS was released in 2011 and boasted a somewhat divisive feature, 3D functionality. While most users would turn the console's 3D function off, the system would go on to lead the handheld gaming market race, with Sony's PlayStation Vita lagging behind. This was mostly due to each system's lineup of quality games, which the 3DS had plenty of. One of the most acclaimed and best-selling 3DS titles is Pokémon Sun and Moon. A new addition to these games were the Alolan forms of existing Pokémon, which were introduced by developers in order to illustrate that Pokémon are living, changing creatures. The team wanted to show that Pokémon who had migrated to the Alola region would follow a different evolutionary path to their original counterparts, similar to the way real animal species in the Galapagos Islands followed their own unique evolutionary paths. Certain Alolan forms caught more attention than others, with Exeggutor arguably standing above the rest. What's interesting is that there is evidence that Exeggutor actually hails from the Alolan Islands in the first place. Its Pokédex entry in Pokémon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, and their remakes, states the Exeggutor originates from the tropics. Funnily enough, Alola is the first tropical setting in the series, and features its own version of the creature. Exeggutor's Pokémon Crystal Pokédex also states that in a good environment, it will grow more heads, as is seen on its Alolan form's extra branch. And Pokémon Sun's Pokédex states that Alola is the best environment for this Pokémon. The creature's design may also be a nod to artwork for the Japanese Jungle trading card booster box, which depicts Exeggutor with an elongated body. Speaking of Pokémon, Nintendo once held a contest surrounding Pokémon Art Academy, an educational game designed to teach players how to draw a variety of Pokémon. The competition involved creating artwork with the chance of it being featured on a Pokémon trading card. The prize turned out to be 100 copies of the card, specifically the only 100 copies of that card to ever be printed. 3 separate contests were held for different regions: Japan, North America, as well as Europe and Oceania. The contests had 2 categories, Dress Up Pikachu and Your Favorite Pokémon. Each category had 5 winners in Japan and 3 elsewhere. In total, the contest resulted in the printing of only 2,200 cards, making the final products extremely limited, and thus likely to fetch a decent price to collectors. Another of the 3DS's most popular first-party games was Nintendogs Cats, which followed on from Nintendogs on the DS. Nintendo had considered a follow-up from Nintendogs after its successful sales figures, and came up with a variety of ideas on how to build upon its foundations. The obvious choice was to change direction from the household pet of a dog and moving to animals ordinarily not found in the home, such as horses or dolphins. However, after many fans of the game requested a version that included cats, the team went as far as to create test builds of the game which would replace the models of dogs to those of cats entirely. These earlier builds simply replaced the character models, and not their animations or behavior, meaning that cats would behave more like dogs, such as wagging their tails when happy. Shigeru Miyamoto was reluctant to create a follow-up with cats, as it didn't seem like a move Nintendo would typically make, whose ideas tend to come out of left field. However, it was revealed in 2009 that Miyamoto had actually got a cat of his own. Nintendo would often keep the private life of Miyamoto secret, as his hobbies would lead to inspiration for future releases, such as his interest in weighing himself leading to Wii Fit, his interest in gardening resulting in Pikmin, and of course, his caring for a family dog leading to the first Nintendogs. His newly found love for a household cat, and in particular how both his dog and cat would get along with one another, reminded him of the 1963 Disney film The Incredible Journey. The film saw Luath the Labrador, Bojet the Bull Terrier, and Teo the Siamese cat journeying across the Canadian wilderness to make their way home, later remade as Homeward Bound. This led to his decision to make a new pet simulator involving cats. Miyamoto stated, "Making a game called Nintendogs Cats just didn't seem right for Nintendo. But people all over the world love cats, so I wanted to put cats in a game somehow. But when I actually got a cat, I realized there just aren't as many things to do with a cat as there are with a dog that we may use in our entertainment. I concluded that showing how dogs and cats interact would be just right." Another first-party Nintendo game which changed direction based on the real lives of developers was Super Mario 3D Land. During a talk at the Game Developers Conference in 2012, lead director of the title, Koichi Hayashida, revealed several ideas the team threw together during the planning stages of the game. These included concepts such as Mario changing sizes dramatically, and even replacing Princess Peach's face with a photograph of the player's girlfriend. None of these ideas had passed the early conceptual stage, but one thing that Hayashida would continue to bring up was his inspiration from Miyamoto, particularly his desire for players to find happiness and his philosophy of enjoying everything, including the work of creating games. Hayashida went on to remind the audience of the traumatic events of March 11, 2011, when a powerful earthquake shook the northeastern coast of Honshu, the main island of Japan, causing widespread devastation and damage across the country, initiating a large tsunami which triggered a major nuclear accident in a power station located on the coast. This was the largest fault slip ever recorded, shifting planet Earth on its axes, resulting in 5 million tons of debris washing into the Pacific Ocean and a death toll exceeding 15,000. The Super Mario 3D Land team are based in Tokyo and felt the effects of the quake, the aftershocks, and the general state of panic across the country. Hayashida was unsure on whether he would ever be able to return to enjoying work with this tragedy hanging over him. But soon, the team became recommitted to the project with the belief that they could deliver something to a nation that needed happiness now more than ever. Hayashida considered his mission successful, quoting one player who stated, "This game has been like a light finally shining into what has been such a depressing time. I feel like this game has given me the power to go on living." Yet another game that shifted direction, though for less emotional reasons, is Bravely Default. During the early stages of development for the 3DS, the game started its life as a sequel to Final Fantasy: The Four Heroes of Light for the Nintendo DS. Square Enix decided to repurpose the game, however, in order to change it from part of the Final Fantasy series to a new IP entirely. This was to not confuse modern-day Final Fantasy fans, as the direction the game had taken was particularly different from the more recent iterations of the Final Fantasy series, being closer in style to older installments. During these earlier stages, the game played like a standard RPG, more akin to Final Fantasy 3 and 5, but when the game took on a new IP, concerns were raised. The decision was made to allow players to default on their turn, effectively storing up points that could be used to unleash more attacks in subsequent turns. Director and head of development for the team at Silicon Studio, Kensuke Nakahara, stated, "We were discussing something in the battles that would be simple yet provide deeper strategy, such as the charge command in the Dragon Quest series. With this gameplay system, I felt like it really had the chance to turn the whole game around." Another RPG on the 3DS is Project Cross Zone, which saw the crossover of characters from several publishers in a singular game. In an interview with Weekly Famitsu, producer of Project Cross Zone, Kensuke Sukanaka, spoke about the name of their game. He explained that the team originally considered choosing something which incorporated all three of the names of the publishers involved: Bandai Namco, Capcom, and Sega. However, this name was considered to be too long, unsurprisingly. He also brought up the Japanese exclusive Namco Cross Capcom, released on the PlayStation 2. and that if this game had been a sequel, they possibly could have used the company names in the title. But because the game was a new IP, they wanted to differentiate the series. Another idea that never saw fruition comes from Project Cross Zone 2. The team had approached Hideki Kamiya, director of Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, asking to include Bayonetta within the title. Kamiya, however, refused. In a tweet, he explains that he said no because he wanted to create the game which would see both Bayonetta and Dante cross over himself, on his own terms. After considering the fans of both series, he now somewhat regrets the decision. However, if Project Cross Zone 3 does ever come out, he would like her to join the roster. Making a game appeal to an audience is important, and many developers believe that the audience likely knows what best appeals to them. Before the release of Epic Mickey Power of Illusion, Disney asked their fans to vote on which version of the game's box art should be used, one that showed the game's villains and one which did not. Ultimately, the audience chose the design showing the villains, though this brought with it a remnant of earlier ideas. Wonderland, the world of Alice in Wonderland, was originally going to make an appearance in the first Epic Mickey, and again in this sequel, but it ended up being cut. However, this didn't stop the Queen of Hearts appearing on early versions of the front cover, despite never showing up in the game itself. She was later replaced with the Mad Hatter, who actually does feature in the game, though not as a villain. And now it's time for this episode's random piece of trivia. Today we're talking about Johnny from the classic SNES RPG Chrono Trigger. Johnny is a cyborg from the future capable of transforming his body into a motorcycle. It's believed that he's based on the character of Danny Zuko, the leader of the gang T-Birds from the 1978 film Grease, played by John Travolta. Johnny's tire extensions also feature the brand name Bad Year, a parody of the real-life tire manufacturer Goodyear. Johnny actually goes on to make a reappearance in Chrono Cross, albeit in a small cameo form, demonstrating his untimely demise. Johnny's broken body can be seen along the roadside in the Dead Sea, near the Highwayman. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to give it a like. If you haven't yet, why not subscribe, where we'll be putting up videos all the time. We do it literally all the bloody time. Leave a comment and tell us some of your favorite 3DS games. They should probably port some of them to the Switch. I think that would be a good idea. Let me know what you think would be a good port, maybe. Until next time, don't forget to leave a nickel in your shoe. You never know when it might come in handy.